Welcome, you guys. It is your girl, Brown Skin Exoticals, and I am back with another video for you guys. So this is the disclaimer part of the video to get the formalities out of the way. We're going to be talking about sexual assault, consent, rape. So this is your one and only trigger warning. If I am cursing, if I am angry, if I sound spiteful, bitter, whatever the case, it is with well reason because there are mixed and light-skinned and exotical women of all shades being abused, as well as mixed and exotical and light-skinned men of all shades being abused in the foster care system and in pertaining to sexual assault as a whole, and nobody seems to give a damn. I care. You care. We care about ourselves. And we're not going to coddle dark-skinned Black people and their make-believe colorisms and racisms and all these other isms. We're going to talk about some real exotical problems, starting with this email. First, I just want to thank you for creating this channel. Not to be dramatic, but it's helped me on an emotional and a spiritual level. I've been through a lot in my life as a first-generation immigrant, foster kid, and sex trafficking victim, and part of that suffering was because I am a brown-skinned exotical. After my parents were deported, I was placed in foster care. I was sent from a working and middle-class suburbs outside of San Francisco Bay to the inner city, where I was ostracized and physically assaulted on a regular basis, both at home, the foster home, and at the public school where she attended. She stuck out like a sore thumb for being proper and quote-unquote whitewashed. For reference, this woman has, excuse my pronunciation, Asperger's syndrome. So she's a nerd and enjoys nerdy things, which make her, again, quote, whitewashed. So she was spend her lunch in the library. One day, a group of girls who she's never met before dragged her out by her hair to fight her for being a, quote, weird-ass bitch. This was in Oakland, California. In the early 2000s, they were suspended, but she had bald spots everywhere and black eyes and bruises because it was 4 girls who jumped one beautiful exotical for doing nothing but being a mixed and exotical woman. But when we talk about our stories, it's nothing but light-skinned tears, right? We don't have real issues. We should let the dark-skinned queens tell their story. A bunch of bullshit. Now, this is a very long email, but she goes on to say in the next portion that she never fought them because that's not how she was raised. Unfortunately, the librarian who saw this saw her as drama and banned her from the library, even though she was the victim. Again, nobody defends the mixed and exotical woman. My foster parent at the time was this obese, dark-skinned African-American female who was so big that she had a wheelchair because walking with her weight would destroy her knees. She had 2 inches of relaxed hair and the face of a gorilla. There was nothing feminine about her, and instead of working on that, she took it out on her, this biracial girl, this white girl. The rest of the youth were monoracial African Americans like her, and she fed them home-cooked meals while they would get 3 cups of noodles and juice. That was really just sugar water and food dye. Her fat ass would throw down in the kitchen. She sold all the food stamps she got and bought and stolen groceries at a premium price, lol. She forbade our exotical here from listening to any music in her native tongue of Spanish. And the white girl wasn't allowed to listen to country or pop either, especially not even in headphones. She was against anything that wasn't a product of toxic African-American culture, as most ADOS dark-skinned Black women are. To make things worse, she invited her nephews to hang out when they were full-grown men in their 20s who would try to force us to sit on their laps and take naps with them and just be creepy. I complained to my social worker, who is a brown-skinned exotical from East Africa, but she was a sellout. So, and this is after the first complaint, she started talking in front of my foster mother to discourage me from speaking up, and it worked. Intimidation, and our friend felt powerless, and she couldn't help but feel like there was something worse going on behind the scenes. Well, eventually, she found out that many African Americans became foster parents not just for the money, but to sex traffic children. But the Black community won't talk about this, but we will here on Brown Skin Exoticals channel. Especially girls, but especially exoticals and white girls. They know 99% of men prefer our features, and out of jealousy and spite and pure greed, they capitalize off of it. That by trafficking young kids who have already been through hell. Long story short, her nephews ended up essaying, God have mercy, the white girl. And she told me She told some random person at the school, and finally someone took our complaints seriously. We were removed from the home, but I was at the school when this happened, so I never got the chance to get my stuff. I was put in another home with only the clothes on my back and my backpack. I would also like to mention, whenever my social worker came, she made a show speaking loudly about who she was and how she knew me. There was no discretion. After the first time she visited my school, a student assistant in the office spread the word that put a pure target on my back, even more from the dark-skinned monoracial girls at my school, who already thought I was stuck up and arrogant, even though I wasn't. I was just depressed. But again, they put their insecurities on us. Nothing new. From there, I bounced around from home to home, and only the peaceful homes I had were in white and non-black people. My last and worst home was where I was trafficked. He was a self-hating MGM African American with short man syndrome, angry at the world for his height. He was obsessed with convincing me and the other black kids that being black was a curse. Not to go into details, but he was obsessed with finding out that I was a virgin, and he sent his dark-skinned girlfriend to the doctor for me, for my physical, for the soccer team, and she tried to sneak into the room. When I told the nurse practitioner that she was my foster care dad's girlfriend, she immediately kicked her out and brought another employee in there to question me about what was going on at home. I expressed how uncomfortable I was with the mind games he would play with me, pretend that I did something wrong so that he could guilt and shame me for something that never happened, to make me submissive to him, accidentally, quote unquote, walking in on me showering, etc. And she alerted the police. Nothing came of it, of course, because my social worker gaslit me and convinced her colleagues that I was a drama queen looking for attention. So we see here, even the mixed and exotical people who are adults, from the social worker to the mixed and exotical man with the dark-skinned black men, they do as much, if not more damage than the dark-skinned black people who are abusing us in the first place. So our abuse is twofold. Other exoticals and mixed and light-skinned people who hate themselves, and dark-skinned black people. Long story short, he had friends, the short, angry MGM man had friends who were pimps, and they were in the system. They had a wild system of gaslighting and making preteen and teen girls look like they were a troublemaker, then running away, never to be seen again. One day he picked me up from school and handed me off to someone he disguised as a church member I never met, who was going to take me on the girls' retreat, but in reality, they drove me for hours away and took me to a hotel where she was forced to have sex for money that she never saw. This went on for 2 years. When she was 18, her trafficker was murdered in front of her, and she literally stole his wallet out of his pants and left the motel she was at. Her ID expired, and she only had a few $100s. There's only a few $100s left in his wallet. She didn't know how to drive and didn't have anyone's number saved. She ended up staying with a stranger to buy a Greyhound ticket to San Francisco, but when she got there and went to the county building to see if she could talk to someone in the foster care system, they said they had closed her case because she was a runaway. How convenient. This was in 2010, before the bill was passed that foster carers can get resources after 18, which I did not know this. So she wasted her time and money trying to get help there. They referred her to a shelter, but then again it says she left and did sex work on her own using her exotic looks to her benefit, but it was a very dangerous industry, so please do not glamorize and glorify this industry, you guys. Here and there, she was harassed by pimps and other girls who'd want to chase her away from the money, and all of them were monoracial African Americans, of course. If you do your research or even find these type of people on social media, very few of them are exoticals. Dark-skinned African Americans exploit and even kidnap and abuse exotical young ladies for the benefit, meanwhile wishing they had the keen features and skin tone and hair textures. It's well known that dark-skinned black women, even skinny ones, struggle in the adult industry. Most men prefer exoticals and non-black women. Didn't know that. Most streetwalkers are dark, and most higher end escorts are exoticals and non-black. Didn't know that either. Here and there, a black woman will excel and make money, but she usually is an exotical of some sort. So they use us because we are more desired, even if that desire is perverted, is perverse. In fact, most pimps don't even want to touch a dark-skinned black woman. And the ones who do put little to no effort in evaluating her with plastic surgery, a car, a wardrobe, a passport, of elevating her, with plastic surgery, car, wardrobe, passport, vacations, going back to school, etc. They don't want to see their own women as worthy. They want us to become, because they want us to, because we make way more money and are more marketable, which is terrible for us and nothing to brag about, but somehow dark-skinned black women despise us for it when we don't even want that attention anyway. She's 30 years old now, is finally leaving the industry, thank God. She's actually on her way to the airport now to fly out to do a 12-month program for sex trafficking victims to unlearn all the toxic abuse and thinking. She says, I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous as fuck. I know they are going to help me, but what about after? If I get a normal job and I have a mean bully ass dark-skinned black woman as a boss, will it trigger me and remind me of my foster care mom and send me into a PTSD spiral? I honestly don't know how to deal with them. And I'm hoping this place doesn't have any dark-skinned black women in positions of power, because they tend to go after social work and nonprofit jobs to boost their ego. Sounds about right. I read an article about a domestic violence shelter / resource center in the UK that was discriminated against an exotical victim and refused her service because she was only half black. They literally turned her away, someone who needed help, out of jealousy and gatekeeping. So a couple notes before I get on to the next portion. One, for the people who do not know, escorts, I believe, are the women, mostly women, who will be paid to have sex with men versus just a random prostitute who's on the street, just for those who didn't know. She goes on in her email to say, I would like to point out some other observations. One, they love to embrace dark and brown skin exoticals because they think we're considered black, and they love to sponge off the quote privileges, which is just power, as I've mentioned, we have. Like Chili from TLC or Tatiana Ali are considered black. Then when people see them, they'll think they're beautiful too. That's not how it works, because again, non-black and white people aren't stupid. They can tell the difference between a dark skin or a brown skin with an admixture who's mixed versus just your regular schmegular dark skin, unambiguous African American. Next, exoticals with mental health issues embrace African American black culture because they aren't up to par with their other side and don't want to do the inner work to become a high value person to fit in. True, Asians value intelligence and money, so a Blasian who isn't smart or rich will have a better experience with African Americans who are on average less prosperous than Asians because of their lower life standards. White people value thinness, so overweight exotical may feel more accepted, actually objectified, by black people because they aren't going to pressure her to be thin because she makes up for it by being exotic and pretty with good hair. Speaking of thinness, when an exotical is overweight, dark-skinned black women love it because they feel like they finally have something over her. I see it in the sex industry as well as online on social media. They think, I may be skinny with no curves or too dark for most men to be attracted to me. And finish the rest of that portion, you guys, sorry. But it says they are obsessed with trying to turn things around and make us look like the stereotypes that we have. I've been antagonized by dark-skinned women. When I speak up for myself, they say I'm, quote, aggressive, gaslighting. When I was down and out and didn't have the best designer items and fashion, I was ghetto. Bad hair day, don't get me started on how they hone in to any and every flaw you have and get off pointing it out and harassing you about it. Even on my worst day, I don't look ghetto, which is why I treated differently than I do. In fact, I only get followed when the security guard is a dark-skinned, monoracial, unambiguous woman. I can attest to this. They go out of their way to follow me, hoping that I steal something like they do, so they can finally get revenge on the girls that rejected them in high school. Because, let's be honest, the boys wanted us, not them, but I digress. I see it all over social media when a light-skinned or mixed person is arrested for something, and they rejoice in the comment section saying that, oh, it's not one of our dark-skinned sisters, it's one of the dark-skinned people. But then tell us that we're creating colorism and creating the divide when they literally celebrate our downfall. They get off on seeing us in a bad light because they think it makes them look better. It doesn't. But when in reality, there's no narrative against us. Lol. When an exotical is a criminal, whites and others call them the N-word and such. So it is really still on them if we're being honest, true, because it just looks like, oh, a bad black person, not a bad mixed person. So, browner and darker exoticals need not only more representation, but we need to differentiate ourselves. Preach, if I wish I could have highlighted that portion. Clubs, guilds, scholarships for each other, etc. We should have our own Jack and Jill, our own fraternity, sorority, so we don't have to deal with people who despise us so much. I'm here for the exclusivity. I think more of us should become foster parents to rescue children from the hands of monoracial black people so they don't have to go what I went through. I hope this wasn't a trauma dump for you. It was not, dear. And that you are able to touch on some of the topics I brought on your channel. After Monday, I won't have my phone or internet access for a while, but I'm glad to get all this off my chest. I'm writing a book one day, and I wouldn't have even thought of it if it wasn't for you and Exoticals United creating safe spaces for us to talk about our experiences in this very crazy world. And she sends very much love. Now, that is the entirety of all of her emails. That was a lot to digest and a lot to think about. Well, actually, no, that was most of it. Then I responded, and I'm going to read this middle portion here just to give you context. I would love for you to share my testimony on your channel as long as my name and email address aren't shown, which I covered. I respect your privacy, sis. I think it's important for mixed and light-skinned young ladies to be aware of our beauty and desirability that can be exploited to our detriment. You can focus on anything I said in the video. I just want younger mixed and light-skinned women to be mindful about predators, traffickers, and dark-skinned black men who want to take advantage of mixed and light-skinned women who are vulnerable. I saw so much of it in the San Francisco Bay Area, especially with mixed and light-skinned girls who have black fathers. The daddy issues make them prey to dark-skinned black men that want to exploit them for their beauty, prostitution, sex trafficking, and even getting the girls to partake in other crimes such as scamming with credit card info and robbery. These troubled women do it to please their father figure in form of a pimp boyfriend or gorilla pimp, which I do not know what that means. And I did, of course, look up some articles about sex trafficking. So this one is titled The Disturbing Connection Between Foster Care, and the rest of the title we'll see later on. But I got this image specifically because this is a mixed or biracial and exotical looking woman. And I just want it to be said, this happens to exoticals, mixed and light-skinned people, whether you're a brown-skinned exotical, dark-skinned exotical, or light-skinned exotical, or mixed or biracial, does not matter. All of us are in the same boat when it comes to this. Again, the title of this article is The Disturbing Connection Between Foster Care and Child Sex Trafficking. And it says it's estimated about 60% of all child sex trafficking have histories in the child welfare system. Youth without stable families are particularly vulnerable to being exploited by traffickers. Traffickers are targeting and recruiting youth directly from the foster care, group homes, and residential placement. Now, this webinar goes on to talk about these things in detail, and if you have free time, please look up the title of this article and go ahead and educate yourself on more, but I just wanted to share that brief fact with you guys. So again, this woman did not share with me her name, but she did say she was a browner skin exotical, so I thought this looks probably close to what she looks like in real life. But please understand, even if you don't look like her, even if you're not in her phenotype of exotical or mixed woman, this can be you. This can be your children. This could be literally any exotical you know. And you need to understand that the system does not care about us. And I loved the advice that she gave of saying that exoticals do need to be more exclusive with fraternities, with adopting other mixed and light-skinned and exotical children, because again, we can't have these unambiguous dark-skinned black people who are predators trying to have their effect on our youth. And just to show you guys, this is the first thing that came to mind when I thought of an exotical woman who was raped. She was put into prostitution, but when she killed her attacker, one of them, she has been fighting the courts ever since childhood. So the funny thing about this story is they love to turn it and said, oh, this is a black woman. This is how the black woman is treated in the system. No, this is a mixed and exotical woman who is fighting like hell. And it needs to stop being that there are stories of mixed and exotical men. And the sad part is we don't even see the side for exotical men. We only see it first one or a couple mixed and light-skinned women. But we need to understand we're by ourselves in this fight, and we need to band together, regardless of admixture, regardless of what you're mixing with, regardless of your phenotype. Because again, they are literally praying and acting diligently on our downfall.